didn't drink it. But I'm not sure I'll need it.
Yep.
Good evening. There we go.
Kennedy will not be here tonight
Okay.
because of the late invitation, he had scheduled a different meeting.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Rachel Crocker, and I am the director here at the Albany County Public Library. And it's delightful. It's delightful to see you all on this fine Thursday evening. It's always great to be here. Every 2 years, this is it. We're excited because we're hoping that 2 years from now, you will have different chairs and different carpet and we won't have all of these wires everywhere, and we will have a brand new meeting room for you to enjoy this. But tonight we are here, and this one. But I want to thank you first, just want to thank the candidates for joining us, and thank the candidates for running. I know it takes a lot of time and energy to toss your hat in the ring, and we appreciate the service that you do to our community by running for office. Of course, thank you all. Yeah. Thank you all for joining us here in person. We have a lovely group in the room, and thank you. We also have a group of folks who will be joining us online, some of them tonight, many in the future, and their future selves will be watching our present selves as we do this, as they get prepared to vote in the primary election. So welcome to everyone who's joining us now or in the future. We have a great evening planned. I'm excited to hear from the candidates. The simple housekeeping reminder is, of course, we are recording this. So candidates, if you'll just make sure that you are good about using that mic so we're getting a great sound for our online audience. And otherwise, that's the simple housekeeping. And I'm going to turn it over to Lynn. Thank you, Lynn.
Well, I don't think that Rachel's that much taller than I am, but apparently she is, so I'll do this. Okay, well, good evening, and I'll echo what Rachel just said. So glad to see you all, and thanks to the library and their continued enthusiasm to sponsor this kind of event. And in case you don't know it, at the national level, the Library Association, the ALA, and the League of Women Voters are now officially partners in all things voting. So, big deal. And at the national level, they're sending out all kinds of celebratory pictures. Speaking of celebratory, I forgot last week that when you stand up and give your names as either candidates or people who occupy a publicly elected office, the people out there in TV land can't see you like I can. Now, we realized that last time. Was this you? Klaus was the one who called and gave me the suggestion. But so I would like, just for all of you who fall into these categories, you're either in a position or running for a position, like school board, city council, some planning commission, any of that. If you would please just line up over here and introduce yourselves. Come on. Oh, look at all of this. Oh, come on, Donald. Come on. All right.
Hi, my name is Chris Lowry. I am a candidate for House District 46, and I've lived in Laramie since 1997 and lived in Wyoming nearly my entire life. I am a chemist, and yeah, I don't know. That's my introduction. Come talk to me later if you have any questions.
Hi, I'm Sue Ibarra, County Commissioner.
Hi, Carrie Murphy. I serve as a trustee and vice chair on the Albany County Board of Trustees.
Erin O'Doherty, I'm on City Council Board 3.
Hi, everybody. Jane Pierce, currently on Laramie City Council, Ward 2, and running for City Council for Ward 2.
Well, thank you very much. All right. Yeah, I don't know if I'd like to be up here if I were any of you either. All right, so there are a number of things to remind you of. One is that we don't allow photograph or video recordings of these sessions. It's all posted in a bunch of places on the library website, on Facebook. Both the league and the library have it on their websites. And Laramie TV, I think it is, Wyoming TV. Anyway, channel 191 of public TV, they'll be showing it soon and on a schedule. So you can always see it and cut from there, I guess, but no cameras and no recording devices. Oh, sure. Thank you. This is our handy-dandy super technician. Shane, what's your last name?
Sims.
Sims, Shane Sims. He works for the library. He's your employee.
Does that seem better?
That does seem better. And in fact, I'm just trying to get out away from the stand so I don't look like I'm about 3 inches tall. We'll try this. Okay. So how is that? Do I know, it's not up yet.
You're standing where you want to be?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Now you can hear me, right? Okay. All right. Yeah, I looked at last week's video, and I almost disappeared behind this thing. So, what else was I going to say? Questions. As you can see, and as you may know if you've been to these or watched these forums in the past, we take questions from the audience. We take questions if you drop them off at my house, or if you call me, or if you email. But, and we try to give preference to the questions. However, we don't use questions that are personal, and we don't try to use questions that are really aimed toward one person and not the rest of the group. And I've got 4 questions now. I also came around and passed out a handout, one of these. And this is a new feature this time. It tells you what the race is that we're looking at. I hate to do this, but I wrote my own bio here. So if it sounds strange, that's why. And so my name is Lenny Pina, like Pina Coladas. I next put the Vote 411 questions from this year that are currently posted. And we ask every candidate running for an office to go in, post a picture, and answer these questions. And if they do that by, July 6th, the Boomerang will publish them in an insert called the Voter Guide. And the whole voter guide will also be posted on Vote 411. And the address of Vote 411 is vote411.org. Okay, so you can find it. And I think there are a lot of people around the country looking for this site. I think it'll come up pretty fast. Let's see, what else was I gonna? I've done everything I said I should. All right, well, shall we get started, gentlemen? Oh, yes, timers, sorry. All right, I stole a timer card from Jamie Egolf. Now, she thought maybe it was a little confusing. When you see this, candidates, that means you have 60 seconds remaining. We count down. And when it goes to this, that's 30 seconds remaining. And so you better hurry up now, okay? What? Oh, yes, there's stop. I don't think that's in question. So I'll return Jamie's sign, and the people doing timekeeping for us are Jamie Egolf and my partner, Al Tremblay. And yes. Yeah, know, these people have feelings too. Oh, and I didn't finish saying that the questions that are on the back of this sheet, are questions that have come off of previous election cycles. Now, it happens that for the legislative seats, there were well over 40, and I decided I wasn't going to make a 3-page handout. So I went through and cut out the ones that were a little dated. You know, remember when we had that massive shortfall, we were going to be $1.5 billion? That didn't seem like the question to ask tonight. There were a few others like that, and I didn't ask. I deleted them. But you can see a whole range of questions from before, and after tonight I will type up these questions here, whether we use them or not, okay? And they'll come up in probably the general election. So, are we ready to start? Oh, and I don't know what happened to Mr. Crouch. He was invited. I think I sent the invitations out the first Wednesday, and that was after the first Monday when we had the final results. But some people need a lot of advance. That, for me, that was much in advance. Anyway, shall we start then? I've got a lot more of these. Oh, they're coming. Okay. All right. What? Oh, yes, that's right. All right, so the first question is not from the audience. Well, they're going to do that now. Thank you, Sid. All right, so as Sid asked, if you would please, we'll start with Karlee. Please introduce yourself. Tell us what office you're running for. And just make a personal remark. I don't want to hear how long you've been in Laramie would be nice. You don't have to tell us all about your work history and things like that. Just some personal statement. Karlee.
So I shouldn't start with my ancestors. Okay.
No, just that you have them.
Thank you. I'm Karlee Provenza. I'm the representative for House District 45, which is West Side Laramie, downtown Laramie, and up to 15th Street. I have lived in Albany County for 10 years. And I have been serving as your representative for 4.
Okay. Gary?
I'm Gary Crum. I've been in Laramie for over 40 years. Raised and born in Rollins. We have 5 generations of us living in the state of Wyoming. Can you hear me now? Better? Okay. Anyway, running for Senate District 10, which is the north side of Laramie and all of Albany County, and really looking forward to continuing to serve the county as we've done for the last many, many years.
Okay, Mike.
I'm Mike Selmer. I'm Democratic candidate for Senate District 10. Been coming through and to Wyoming for 20 years and living here for 14. Yeah, I do have ancestors that traveled through Wyoming. And yeah, my wife and I love it here. Our daughter and son-in-law and 2 grandkids are here. And it's a great community of hardworking people, and I look forward to serving.
Okay, well, thank you all. My ancestors stopped in Sturgis. I'm sorry. My grandmother went to Sheridan, but only temporarily. All right. So there was a meeting of the school board today, and I guess they decided to pass their new rules. They had to have it passed by July 1st. I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but this is a question about what happened there. Do you think the legislature should interfere, now interfere is maybe a little leading, with conversations between school counselors and children? Now, the way we're going to do this, I'll start with one person, and then we'll just rotate. Gary, second time around, you'll be the first, and Mike, you'll be the third, and then we'll do that again. All right, so Karlee, you want to start this time?
Sure, absolutely not. The legislature should not intervene between counselors and children. I voted against this bill when it came through the legislature. We heard from teachers and counselors that it was going to harm their rights as healthcare providers to these students. It was going to make children feel like they couldn't speak about their personal lives. We have a mental health crisis in our K through 12 schools and really across our state, across all populations. And when we interfere with any ability to provide care to young people, we are harming them. It is a violent bill that we passed, and it's unfortunate that it did. I do believe that it will end up being challenged. One of the arguments that I made on the floor was that now counselors are going to have to call parents when they are reporting them to DFS because they have to report everything to parents. Does it make sense to tell abusers, hey, heads up, I'm turning you into DFS? No, it does not. So I think that it's unfortunate that that bill passed. It harms Wyoming youth and it harms our hardworking teachers.
All right, thank you, Karlee. Gary, you're next. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm
Okay.
good. Thank you. I really believe that children are best raised by their parents, and in order for the parents to do a good job, they need to know what's going on with their children, not only in the home, but at school. And, you know, certainly if they're abusers, there's ways to handle that, and there's no excuse for abuse, zero excuse for abuse. But at the same time, there's zero reason that parents don't understand what's going on with their children in the schools, and they're the #1 source to help raise a child, and the schools certainly can help with that, but I really believe the parent should know what's going on with their child.
Thank you, Gary. All right, Mike, you're the third and last person on this. Do you want me to repeat the question?
No,
Okay.
I'm good. While I understand some of the reasoning behind proposing and passing a bill like this, the number of unintended consequences of this bill are just legion. And it doesn't even go, you don't have to go to the worst case scenario to understand that. It doesn't have to be an abuser in the home. It doesn't have to be a bad parent by any means. I think there's lots of good parents who understand that there are times that their child may want to speak to some other adult about something that they don't feel comfortable talking to their parent about. And if they feel that anything they say to a teacher or to a counselor is going to be reported to their parent, they won't do it. If that leads to tension, if that leads to a lack of confidence in the classroom, it will affect their grades. If it leads to further problems where they don't feel like they can talk to an adult, it will lead to suicide. These are serious problems that the legislature has created. And I will band with Karlee to do our best to mitigate the problems that the legislature has caused with this bill.
Okay. Okay.
Was I good?
No, good. So let's start with you, Gary. I picked one here. Do you support, this is a university town and you've been here a long time, would you support changing the UWYO Board of Trustees to a 5-member regionally elected board instead of the current governor-appointed board? I'll intervene to say whoever wrote the question doesn't have all the information. It is regional, but I'll let you try to answer it.
Yeah, so #1, I was going to say that. It already is regional, and it should continue to stay regional and get representation from all aspects of the state. Certainly, the governor right now has the ability and the authority and the responsibility to appoint trustees to the university. If there's a need to change that, then I would certainly suggest somebody introduce a bill and it can be debated and look at the details. But at this point in time, without having the details of what that change is, it's hard to comment. Certainly we need to have regional representation from around the state, and that's where we need to see what the reasons would be to do that.
Mike?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I believe that the governor perhaps has a little bit too much control over that, and it would be interesting to explore other options for choosing those trustees, on a regional basis. But I think studying the issue, having a bill proposed and debating it is certainly the best way to proceed.
Karlee?
Thank you. I think that the current process of the Board of Trustees lacks at least some level of accountability. When these terms are as long as they are and it's a governor appointment, maybe it should look more like how our judges are placed. So our judges are appointed by the governor, but they can be removed, which would allow for potentially some more government transparency and accountability. I think before we change the entire process of how the Board of Trustees should be brought together, we maybe need to talk more about how do we look at policies of the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees in the state of Wyoming meets very regularly in comparison to other states. They also have a lot of executive sessions. I don't know what happens in executive sessions, but one example is that the lab school was currently considered by the Board of Trustees, and the university is looking to potentially withdraw that. That should have been a conversation that was had with the public in a more transparent process. I don't know that we need to upheave exactly the process that we have now, but we do maybe need to look at improving how our Board of Trustees operates.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we're starting with you, Mike. Your opinion of school choice.
My opinion of school choice.
That's what it says here. What is your opinion of school choice?
I certainly believe that every parent has the right to choose where they're going to send their child to school without any reservation.
Okay.
If that's the end of the question.
Yes, that is
then,
the end of the question.
Well, but I think that leaves a lot unsaid.
Yes. Would you like to say any more? Or let the others say it?
I have time, so I'm going to.
Okay.
I think our public schools are critical to the strength of our communities. And it's important that anytime a parent chooses to send their child somewhere else, that the costs aren't taken from our public schools and given somewhere else. One of the problems that our public schools are having now is that that child who no longer goes to a public school is no longer counted in the funding model that school receives. But if we start requiring that the money that student would have gone to the school, we need to make sure that the school receives that money so that it can, or is counted in their school population.
Okay, thank you. Maybe the word FTE would help in your discussion, full-time equivalency. That's how they measure the money. All right, Karlee.
Thanks for the question. I support parents having a choice in the schools that they send their children to, or whether they homeschool them or not. What I don't support is utilizing government funds to pay for that choice. and I don't want it to harm our public education system. Wyoming has some of the best schools in the country. We test some of the highest, if not the highest. I think last year we had the highest reading and math scores in the country. I don't want to do anything that's going to potentially jeopardize the incredible work that our hardworking teachers are doing in the state of Wyoming. So it's important to me that we protect public education. Now, if you want to send your kid to a private school, you want to send your kid to to homeschooling, it should not be the burden of the government to fund your choice to do so. We provide these incredible public education systems. They support our youth and future generations to do well in our communities. They're great economic providers. And what we've seen is that charter schools cost the state of Wyoming $14 million a year from the state. That's money that we should be spending towards our deficit that we're not paying for our public schools. We are in litigation right now because the state legislature has failed to uphold their duty to the people of Wyoming by providing them a fully funded, quality, equitable education. Anything that gets in the way with that is, I do not support.
Okay. Gary, it's your turn.
No, again, thank you. I believe in school choice. You know, competition is good. Competition makes everybody better. So, you know, if somebody wants to send their child to a private school, that's great. I think, you know, we need to measure the outcomes, what's coming out of schools. As Karlee said, we're very fortunate here in Laramie. We have great public schools, but if somebody chooses to go to a private school, then they certainly can do that. I also believe that if you need funding for that private school, that student, we're really funding the student's education. We're not funding the school itself. So I would say we could take that money and help fund that private school. However, if that student decided to be in band or choir or basketball, then they need to pay for that and reimburse the school for that cost of that activity, just to offset what the school would pay for that. So I believe in school choice, but most importantly, what I believe in is local decisions by a school board. And it's really important that we get good people on our school board that represent all of us and to make sure that we have really, really good public schools here in Laramie.
Okay, thank you. Each of our candidates said a little bit different, took a little bit of different point of view. So it should be a short question. It's a yes, no, win, yes, no. Okay, here we go. Have you ever taken a formal class in the U.S. Constitution and/or the Wyoming Constitution? If so, when? And when did you last read the Constitution? It doesn't say which one. All right, we're starting with Karlee.
Formal class on the Constitution, I suppose I got that in my primary education.
I got it in 7th grade. I don't know about you.
I don't recall, but I certainly would say that the legislature is a great education on the Constitution. I have several copies because they're so beat up. They've got tabs and all sorts of writing in them. I read at least a portion of the Constitution earlier today. So constantly having to re-up and understand what that document says.
Well, how serendipitous. All right, Gary.
Have I taken formal class in the Wyoming Constitution and the U.S. Constitution? Yes.
When?
The U.S. Constitution was probably in 2010. Maybe something like that, as well as, and then the Wyoming Constitution was certainly up here at the University of Wyoming. That would have been in the 1970s. When was the last time I read the Constitution of the state of Wyoming? Saturday last. And the U.S. Constitution, I read it, we're at the end of June, I probably read it 1st of May, Memorial Day, between 1st of May and Memorial Day.
All right. Mike. It's your question.
Is there a question to that?
Huh? No.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe honesty is important. And as with Karlee, I think in high school and elementary school would have been the last time I had any formal classes in the U.S. Constitution. I've never had a class in the Wyoming Constitution since I didn't attend school in Wyoming. I have never read the U.S. Constitution straight through. I've never read the Wyoming Constitution straight through. I've read elements of it. And the nice thing about both documents is they are reference tools. Whether or not I read them 20 years ago or last week, I would still use them as reference tools to make sure that anything I consider is constitutional in both Wyoming and the United States. Thank you.
Okay. I hope our question author is satisfied with those answers. Here, we'll get back to a traditional question. Gary, what areas of the state's budget would need to be altered, or would you support altering?
And that starts with me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You know, what I'd really look at the state budget is, you know, how we're funding not only our schools, but how we're funding transportation in this state, and what we're doing as far as our highways to make sure our highways are up to speed and where they need to be. You know, the state of Wyoming, through its history, has been a transportation state. People pass through. I think we heard it from Mike that he had relatives pass through. So we need to really look at how we fund our transportation. One thing that I think we really need to look at here in Albany County is we need to look at how we're going to widen, continue to put the 4 lanes south on 287. You know, there was a tragic accident the day before last right outside the Buttes, and we need to look how we have adequate highways and a transportation system in Wyoming. We also need to make sure that our educational system is funded very appropriately.
Thank you. Mike?
The very first thing I would do in regards to the Wyoming budget is stop putting $1 billion a year into a rainy day fund that we never seem to touch. How many folks can think of a benefit for our community that $1 billion would pay for? Would the widening of 287 south cost $1 billion? No, it wouldn't. We could have taken care of that problem years ago if we had a Wyoming legislature that really focused on the strength and safety of our communities instead of putting money into the rainy day fund. I found it unfathomable that we would choose to put $1 billion into a fund that is already the largest in the country by a state's, in comparison to a state's budget. And there's no excuse for that. There are the schools, our rail system, our education, our roads. There are just so many things that we could be doing better in this state instead of putting money into a savings account.
Okay, thank you. Karlee?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think for our state budget, the budget that the House had was a good one. One of the things that I'm most proud of is that we fully funded the Department of Health this year. That's a big deal. The Department of Health faced major budget cuts in previous years. And one thing that I've heard from constituents and from people across the state is healthcare is not affordable and it is not accessible. And so we need to be able to figure out how are we going to solve those problems, and sometimes that means investing in programs that are going to help local communities. In addition, I think that we need to focus some of our efforts and our funding towards housing. In previous years, we put money into grants so that cities could apply for them, but we really need to take a very wide approach to how do we solve our housing crisis, not only in Laramie, but across the state of Wyoming. And I think, you know, part of that has been how do we remove some regulations, but it's also how do we provide incentives to ensure that people are doing the things that are going to help the housing crisis. That's something that I think the legislature needs to spend more money on in doing that. And ultimately, I think it all needs to come back to diversifying our funds. Wyoming is subject to boom and bust cycles, which then really hurts communities when we're in a bust. Right now, we have money. Great. It's a good time to fix what will someday be a problem again. So diversifying how we raise revenue in the state of Wyoming is a critical conversation we need to have.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, we learn so much at these forums, don't we? Not only what the person knows and thinks, and but just how things work. So I thank all of you for that. Let's take this one. Nationwide, polling on common sense gun reform and regulations usually is in the 60% plus range. Gun deaths, mass shootings, suicide by guns are higher in America than any other nation. Do you support common sense gun reform? Yes or no, and why? We get to start with Mike.
I started first, right?
You go first, Mike.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I know, it's hard to keep track
yes.
when you're there, even
Yes,
here.
Of course, I support common sense gun reform. But I don't think it should come from the traditional direction or areas that gun reform proposals have come from. We have folks that have been concerned about and working to address gun violence in our country for decades. They've made countless proposals, and every one gets shot down by the NRA and the gun lobbies. And it's doing us no good to continue this cycle. We have a problem in this country. Suicide, accidental deaths by gun violence, mass shootings, they happen all the time. And we need the gun lobby, we need gun owners, we need the NRA to stand up and tell us what they're going to do about it. Right now, all they're doing is shooting down every idea that comes up. And we need to change that. So let's put it in their lap.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Karlee.
Complicated question, given
Yes.
what's common sense gun control or gun reform.
You could define it for us.
I think it really depends on who you're talking to. I will say, you know, gun violence in Wyoming is often an issue of domestic violence and suicide. Those are two really complex problems that are not going to be solved by banning AR-15s. So how do we look at this from a Wyoming problem with Wyoming solutions? I've worked with the governor's task force on suicide prevention of veterans, and some of the things that we've been working on is how do we get mechanisms for folks and families and kind of destigmatize this idea of, I'm struggling, I need to do something with my guns. I think that Wyoming's solutions to this is going to look different than some of the national conversations. Politically, gun control is not going to happen. We have been trying to expand gun rights in Wyoming by passing bills that violate the United States Constitution. So I recognize that maybe my answer is not satisfying for some folks, but this is a complicated issue, and I think that we need to be invested in healthcare, suicide prevention at just an astronomical rate, just given that we are usually the #1 state for these issues.
Gary.
I agree with Karlee on the fact that, you know, what is common sense, but what I do believe in is the Second Amendment to the Constitution, which says, you know, that everybody has a right to bear arms, and so we can talk about what right to bear arms is. However, I grew up at a time where we had guns in schools. Over 50% of the people had a gun in school. You took a gun to school to go hunting after class. You kept a gun in your locker at school. And there were no shootings. And I'm not saying that's the solution today, but I don't believe guns are the problem. I believe it's a mental health issue. You know, the #1 weapon to kill people in this country is knives, and we don't talk about we're going to ban knives because it kills more people than guns, but it's a healthcare issue, it's a mental health issue, and we've got to find a way to solve the mental health problem in this country and really dig into it and not ignore it. It's easy to say, well, we'll just pass it away. It's hard to talk about mental health. We've got to quit being hard to talk about mental health and spend money and focus on it, because mental health issues are costing us more money by ignoring them than they are if we worked on them and solved them.
Okay, thank you. Mike. Oh, have I lost track again? You had to start with them.
I started.
All right, sorry. How about something a little less complicated? Do you attend a local church, and are you a member? We start with Karlee.
Great question. I believe that the government and religion should not interfere with each other. I do not bring my religious beliefs to the state capitol. I believe that our founding fathers believed that that was how it was supposed to be done. I believe that we need to keep religion out of our decision-making in Cheyenne. And for that reason, you know, I'm happy to talk privately about what my belief system is, but I think continuing to advertise what our religious belief system has really harmed how we do govern it. There's no space in government to tell people what their religion should be, and unfortunately, my colleagues often do. So we have a lot of legislation that has come because of religious beliefs that I think has been harmful to the state of Wyoming, and quite frankly does not fit and is not honest to Wyoming values. So that's my answer to that question.
Okay. I kind of thought that might be it. I belong to a synagogue, you know, there's no church. Anyway, Gary.
Okay, so again, back to the Constitution, there is a separation of powers between the church and the state. So I 100% believe in that. Now back to the question, to answer the question, do I attend church? Yes, as every week as I can, sometimes twice a week. Do I go to a couple of Bible studies every week? Yeah, Monday morning and Wednesday morning. I'd love to have you guys join us. Am I a member of a church? Yes. I believe religion is your choice, whatever you want to do personally. I don't believe it belongs in government, but I do believe if you have a form of religion and believe in a higher power, that you're a better person for it, and you have boundaries for yourself out there if you believe in a higher power.
I've had a long and complicated spiritual journey throughout my life. I've been a conservative Baptist. I've been a Presbyterian. I've been a Methodist. I've attended a UU church. And my spiritual journey is ongoing. I agree 100% with Karlee that it needs to be completely separated from how we govern our communities. I don't agree that you need to attend church to be a moral person, to do what's right. And I think there are quite a few people in our community who are as morally upright as you can be and may never have set foot in a church. But also, I do believe that there are a lot of churches that do a lot of good in the community. Let's keep it in the church and out of our government.
Okay. You know, last year, we took a little pause in the middle. Instead of asking long questions, it was just sort of a reaction to a word. I have 3 words here. I guess I only have 2. Supreme Court. I don't care which one.
Is this reaction enough?
All right, I think,
Who starts?
Gary, don't you start? I think so.
Okay. Supreme Court. You know, they're the third branch of government. The judiciary is the third branch of government, and they need to be respected. There's a process of appointing Supreme Court justices, and we need to respect that. You know, the President of the United States, whether they're Republican or Democrat, has the ability to support Supreme Court justices when there's vacancies. We need to respect their decisions. The rule of law is what this United States of America was founded on. It's what the state of Wyoming is founded on, and we need to respect their decisions. We may disagree with them, and there's a place out there and a process that you can go about to try to change their decisions. But one thing you can't do is commit violence. You can't commit vandalism and tear things down. That's not protesting, and that's not the First Amendment of free speech. Free speech is expressing your opinion. It's not destruction. And that's where I'm at.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I agree 100% with Gary about the rule of law. And I think that we need to remind our governor and many of the Republican leaders in our state exactly what the rule of law means and respecting it. It's hard to say you should respect the Supreme Court when you don't respect the Fifth Circuit Court, or you don't respect some other court in our land. If the courts are to be respected, they should all be respected. I think it's hard to argue against the fact that our current Supreme Court leans a certain way. And a lot of people think that's great, and I know a lot of people think it's not. I think it's a shame that it feels like our Supreme Court is becoming more and more a political institution and not a judicial institution. And I think that says it all.
Okay. Karlee?
I'm going to try to stick to the nature of this question and
Yes?
keep it real short.
Okay.
I hope they uphold our reproductive freedom.
Okay. And I would recommend, I've started listening to the arguments that they have on TV from the Supreme Court. There's nothing political about those arguments. It's really edifying. So anyway, I'm not running for office. Interim session of the Wyoming legislature. Mike?
That's the word to respond to?
Interim session.
Interim session.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating, and I'm looking forward to being part of it.
Okay.
I think they do a great work.
Okay.
Hopefully we pass some of the bills that we write during the interim.
Okay, that would be a new idea. Gary?
Yeah, do the work that you need to do during the session and be done, you know, be done when the session's done.
Okay. Special ed. Karlee? Special ed. Special education.
Critical component of our ability to provide equitable and quality education to the people of Wyoming.
Gary?
Now, explain that to me a little bit.
Special education.
Special, okay, got it. Okay. Special education, I think, is back to the thing on mental health and helping people. I think special education is a real key component of our educational process, and we need to make sure it's fully funded. I have a daughter that has autism, and I've seen what autism does for folks, and I see when people get treatment the way they need to get treatment, what it can do to make their lives better. And I've seen people, when they don't get treatment, what happens to their lives. And not only affects their lives, it affects their families' lives, and it affects the community. So special education is a very, very critical and important part of our educational system.
Okay. Mike?
Valuable to our community, and my wife and I fostered 2 at-risk kids who had mental, emotional problems, and I think they benefit from special programs. I would love to see every student in a public school have some exposure to what special education is like, so that they have sympathy for and understanding of special ed students.
Good answer. All right. Well, some people were saying we should have fewer questions than usual, just because you might want to get out of here sooner than usual. Let me just ask Maybe 3 more questions? Is that all right with you? Audience, 3 more?
I mean, I
Fair
at the
enough.
legislature stay sometimes till 11:30 at night, so
Yeah,
whatever you
I'm in
need.
no hurry, so it's,
I won't hold you hostage.
okay. Okay. School board also stays late. Are you in favor of teachers being exempt from prosecution under the pornography laws? Okay. Who goes first? I think Karlee, isn't it your turn?
I think it is.
Repeat that again one more time, I'm sorry.
Yes. Are you in favor, and don't make it a yes, no, please. Are you in favor of teachers being exempt from prosecution under the pornography laws?
Absolutely. We should not be prosecuting our teachers for trying to provide a good quality education to our communities. I think that it's been a hot topic, this political rhetoric around what is pornography, and we have created a witch hunt after our teachers and our librarians, and it has no place in this state. I honestly have no patience for it. We should be doing everything we can to protect our teachers when they are doing their jobs, and trying to vilify them and say that they are providing pornography to students is just nonsense, and not based in any honest effort to try to uphold our education system. So yes, we should protect our teachers from litigation that comes from dishonest rhetoric.
Okay. Gary?
Should they be exempt from prosecution? Absolutely not. There's no place for pornography in our schools. There's certainly a place for education that relates to reproductive health, but that's not pornography. There is no place for pornography in our schools. What there is a place for in our schools is teaching our children, a question earlier, we need to teach our children the basic fundamentals, reading, writing, math, arithmetic, Wyoming history, U.S. history. Be focused on those things. Give our children the ability to have extracurricular activities that meet their needs and help with vocational things down the road, from having FFA areas in the class, having cooking if they want to do, and having those home, what used to be probably incorrect now, but home ec type things if they choose to go there. Have business classes, have extracurricular activities and sports and music to well round them out. That's what we need to be focused on. And if you're frankly, if you're a pervert, there's no place for you in the school, and you should be arrested and put in jail.
Okay. Mike?
I agree with Karlee, and I agree with Gary.
That's easy.
I don't believe pornography exists in our schools, and to persecute or prosecute teachers because they are teaching a certain subject and someone doesn't believe in the way that it's being taught is wrong. But of course, we don't want perverts in our school, and I've read about teachers who have possessed real pornography, who have been prosecuted, and I 100% agree with that. But those are two completely separate issues. And yeah, I believe in protecting our teachers, defending our teachers, and not creating an atmosphere where they are afraid to tell kids the truth. Honesty is important.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I have 3 other topics here. And it's so tempting to add what I know, but I won't. Should the practice of chasing and running down coyotes with a snowmobile be made illegal in Wyoming?
I think it's my turn.
I think it's yours, yes.
Okay,
Gary.
I'll take this. So, you know, I'm an avid hunter, and I'm all for predator control too. You know, sometimes the best way to get rid of predators is with a snow machine. And I know that sounds tough, but sometimes it's much more humane than shooting something at a long distance and letting it live for a long period of time. There's no place to, I think, where we're getting to the issue that took place up in Daniel, where you keep a wolf in a cage and you tape them up and you show them off and march them around for several days and then kill them. There's no place for that. That's not humane. But if you really know what's going on, and if you've actually been out there when chasing coyotes, and a wolf's a dog like a coyote is, you know, sometimes it is humane. The most humane thing to do is with a snow machine or with a vehicle. Most of the time with a gun. But there is predator control is important in this country. Having been on ranches a lot of my life, predators do serious economic damage to livestock in our country, and we need to control that.
Mike.
Can you repeat the question so I know whether I'm saying yes or no?
Should the practice of chasing and running down coyotes with a snowmobile be made illegal in Wyoming?
Yes, I believe it should. If there is not a more humane way to control predators that need to be controlled, I just can't imagine that someone driving a snowmobile can hit a coyote who's running away in such a way that it won't cause it pain and suffering, more so than with a gun. But, you know, that's my opinion.
Okay, you're stopping. Yeah?
That's simple enough.
Okay.
No. Yes.
Well, I'm not sure who wanted to know this, but this
I
too...
didn't answer.
Yeah, Karlee gets her turn.
Excuse me, Karlee. Should I read the question again for you?
Oh, I think I get the general idea. Should we continue to allow people to do what we call yak whacking? You know, I grew up on a ranch, at least in part of my childhood, and we had livestock and we had hunters, and I've spent a lot of time with hunters, and we never used a snowmobile to hunt down predators, nor did we need to. And my understanding is that we compensate ranchers when they lose some of their livestock. I don't think it should be legal. I don't think that I think that our laws often should be a reflection of our values in Wyoming. And I don't think that at least most of the hunters that I've talked to support that. There's a reason for guns oftentimes if we have to deal with predators. And even as someone who grew up on a ranch, I just can't understand having to run predators down with a snowmobile. If you run them down with a snowmobile, they're running away. They're no longer killing your livestock. So I guess I just don't understand having to hit them, particularly when you can be compensated.
Okay. So, once again, I haven't left anybody out, right? Some states prohibit employees of local state government and state universities from holding elected office, citing the obvious conflict of interest. Would you vote to end the practice of government employees being eligible to be elected to state and local offices? We start with Mike.
Can you repeat the
I
very start
certainly
of that
can.
question?
There are two paragraphs here. Some states prohibit employees of local, state government, and state universities from holding elected office, citing the obvious conflict of interest. Would you vote to end the practice of government employees being eligible to be elected to state and local offices? In other words, would you make them ineligible to be elected?
Yeah, and again, in my policy of being as honest as possible, does that problem exist in Wyoming? I was not aware that government employees could be elected to office. It seems like, you know, it could be a potential conflict of interest when you're talking about local and government employees. You know, someone who's working for the city being elected as city councilor just seems illogical. But I'd be interested in seeing how prevalent that practice is in Wyoming. I have not heard of a city or government employee being elected to office.
Okay. Karlee?
I think that we should allow government employees to serve, particularly when we look at folks who, if you work in a school district, you can serve in the legislature. We have some lawmakers that are currently teachers, and some school districts have policies to allow for that. And I think that they bring a wealth of knowledge. They bring a lot of honest conversations about what does this look like when we implement these laws. So I think they're honestly very helpful in being able to write policy for the state of Wyoming. I don't know of any, particular concerns of folks that are in. I know that if we lost our educators that serve in the House, particularly, that we would be at a disservice to people. They're a great contribution to our education committee. I think the laws that federal employees can't necessarily work in the legislature or run for office, and that's more of has to do with the federal government than the state government. So, no, we should allow government employees who have a wealth of experience to serve in the legislature.
Okay. Gary?
This is one of those questions that's not yes or no, right?
Good.
There's more to it than that. So certainly, if you work for the state government, you shouldn't serve in a state position. If you work for the city, you shouldn't be on city council. I don't believe you. For your direct employer, you shouldn't be employed. But on the other hand, as Karlee said, we have some great representatives in the Wyoming legislature. Steve Harshman, a friend of mine, serves in the legislature and does a really good job. He's a school teacher and a coach up at Casper-Natrona High School. So I see that there's a benefit. And where do you draw the line? Okay, are you a state employee? Well, we got contractors all across the state that receive state funding for building a building. Are they a state employee at that point in time, and are they benefiting, and they're no longer allowed to do that? Are ranchers that, take Karlee's example, to get money for livestock from the state, are they now a state employee and they no longer can serve? So I don't believe you should work directly for your direct employer, but I think there's ability in a lot of good people that can serve in other publicly elected officials if they serve somewhere in the public sector.
Okay, very nicely done, candidates. All right, here is the last question. I guess I've got two questions, but this one's sort of a repeat. Anyway, the Supreme Court vacated an earlier decision withholding Idaho's abortion ban and will at least now allow doctors to provide emergency health care to women in distress with pregnancy complications. Do you support reproductive rights for women? Yes or no, and why? Who gets to start?
I'll start that one.
Okay.
I was a party on an amicus brief on this case in the United States Supreme Court. I fought against this particular ban. Most people, and I did that for a lot of reasons, but most people agree that the government should stay out of personal medical decisions that are better left to women, their doctors, their faith, and their families. And I believe that Wyomingites deserve freedom from government overreach in this regard. Extreme partisans want to control women's bodies and force women to remain pregnant against their will, and they deny women the freedom and respect to make their own decisions. I think that is awful. Dishonest politicians don't have the best interest of Wyoming communities at heart when they ban life-saving care, particularly in these cases. So I think that I'm grateful that Idaho is now going to be able to allow emergency services, but it should be more than that, because you shouldn't have to be on your deathbed to get services from a doctor when we could prevent anything from happening. We've heard stories from women who are no longer able to conceive because they've had to wait too long. They weren't in a life-saving position, so they were trying to have children, and now they can't because our laws have not allowed them to do so. So I support laws that work towards making Wyoming a place where we have the freedom to raise a family when and how we choose, and that expands birth control and contraceptive access.
All right, thank you, Karlee. Gary?
So I'm pro-life, but there is a place for abortions when the mother's life is in jeopardy. So emergency services, absolutely. But I think we spend so much time talking about this one single issue that we forget about all the other healthcare needs out there in this country that we really, in this state, that we need to focus on. We need to focus on OBGYN services for mothers that have to travel from Rollins or Wamsutter to Laramie to deliver a baby. We have to find a way to get medical doctors and pediatricians in those communities. We have to find a way, we talked earlier, to solve mental health issues in this state. We have to find a way to make sure there's an ambulance and emergency medical services in this state. We have to find a way to make sure that our communities have doctors and nurses and dentists. We spend too much time talking about one single issue, and we forget the big picture that really, really helps a lot of people. We need to find a way to help everybody in the state meet those medical needs, with mental health being right at the top of that list.
Thank you. Mike?
Abortion is never an easy decision for any woman or for any couple, but it is a decision that is theirs to make, not the government's. Honest conversations about abortion need to include the fact that the side that is arguing against taking away a woman's freedom to make that choice are coming from a religious standpoint. And as I said earlier, I was once a conservative Baptist, and I understand that, that this is being pushed for religious reasons, and it hurts our communities. And it's a difficult issue that needs to continue to be fought. I'm fully in favor of a woman having the freedom to make all of her reproductive choices, including abortion. Abortion is health care. And yeah.
All right. Now take a deep breath. Relax a little bit. Do you have a last statement that you'd like to make? Something you didn't say along the way that you'd like to add now? Something you care about that didn't get mentioned? I just went through and circled questions that I might have asked had the audience not asked so many. And one of them would have been about the state's role in childcare and not having many women in the legislature, and how do you differentiate yourself from the other candidates? Those are just a couple of the questions I might have asked. However, do you want to give them a minute this time?
Are we still at 90 seconds?
No, we're going to go for 60 now. 60? Or do you want
60.
90?
Oh, okay.
60. They all know and love you by now, okay? So.
And I'm starting this time?
I think Gary is starting
I go
because
first.
Karlee started with.
Okay.
Unless you want to go first, Mike.
No, you're welcome.
Okay. No, number one, thank you all for being here tonight. In Wyoming, we have to work together. There's not enough of us to sit here and fight about issues. We have to find a way to solve issues. We tend to try to make things in politics these days black and white. Well, the longer I live, I used to say there's a lot of gray until I was corrected not too long ago. There's a lot of color in the middle, and that color is wonderful, wonderful things if we can work together for the betterment of the state of Wyoming, to make this a great place to live that we've always lived. And so I hope I'm a part of that. I want to be a part of that. I know together we can do great things for the state of Wyoming. I am open for conversation at any time. Reach out to me. My cell phone number is 307-399-0286. Call me. I want to talk because it's going to take all of us together to make Wyoming the place that we want to live. So thank you for letting us be here tonight.
Thank you.
First, I want to very quickly clarify that I interpreted the question about government employees extremely narrowly. And absolutely, teachers and the expertise that can be obtained from a variety of government employees in different parts of our government are important. I've been a blue-collar worker my whole life, a small businessman my whole life. Hard work and solving problems has been part of my DNA. And I believe that I would bring a unique perspective to the legislature that's not currently represented. And I look forward to having the opportunity to serve all of you.
All right, thank you,
And
Mike.
I thank all of you for being here, and the League of Women Voters for putting this on.
Karlee.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you to the League. Thank you to the library, my favorite public institution. Wyoming has some serious problems to solve around housing, making healthcare more affordable, creating programs for childcare for hardworking families, and working to keep young people here. I hope to accomplish some of these bigger goals and solve some of these bigger issues so that Wyoming can be a place that young families want to live. I want to make Wyoming a safe place for all of our communities to have the freedom to live and love in. And I believe, and I hope that my record supports this, is that if I'm anything, I'm tenacious. And I've worked hard for this community, and I've done it for years. When I first ran in 2020, I ran on the idea that we needed transparency and accountability in government, and we finally passed a bill in this past session for transparency and accountability of law enforcement, something that this community deeply cared about. So I hope you also find me tenacious, and I hope I earn your vote. Thank you.
All right, let's give these people a big hand, shall we? All right, I wanted to add that when this tape or this video gets posted, we'll put your contact information, we'll stick that in maybe the front or the back of the video, so you don't have to find their contact. And let me invite you to bring any campaign materials that you have. And if you didn't bring something tonight, you can always stop by on another Thursday and put it on a table in the back. Do you have any questions about how, when, where it'll be posted or celebrated?
Will there be a disco?
Will there be a disco? You know, I was out of the country during disco. I don't know.
Great. We'll launch the video at the disco down the street. Thank you.
Okay, but there was a PBS program about disco, I think, just last week.
Perfect.
All right, so thank you all for coming, and we're still getting out early, although there were only 3 candidates, so it's not so early. We used to do 9 or 10 questions. We've done 10. Mingle a little bit, help put the chairs away, and maybe we'll see you at Freedom Has a Birthday. That's next Thursday, or the Thursday after that, and we'll be back here with another forum. Okay, good night.